You know, our intelligence analysts are poring over a brand new ISIS propaganda video posted on YouTube Friday. The 55-minute video entitled Flames of War, Fighting Has Just Begun features a male narrator who appears to have a North American accent, either Midwestern American or Canadian. He warns of a direct threat to America in the near future. Joining us now to help us make some sense of this and many other ISIS-related threats to the homeland is Brigitte Gabriel, the president of Act for America, a grassroots organization dedicated to national security. And she's also the author of the book Because They Hate, a survivor of Islamic terror warns America. Brigitte, great to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Uma. Delighted to be with you.
Let's talk about that video, which is still being analyzed by voice specialists who are trying to determine its origin. But the bottom line here is that this slick, glossy video is being produced by a very sophisticated production team within ISIS. And it's now clear that ISIS wants Americans to understand their fight is directed at us. What's your take on this video?
Well, they are becoming very sophisticated in the way they communicate. They surpass our communication strategy. We know that ISIS and the radicals before them, even Al-Qaeda. Remember Gaddam, who was a spokesperson for Al-Qaeda, was a man from California, fluent in English. The editor of Inspire magazine of Al-Qaeda was also a man from North Carolina, a Baptist converted to Islam. So now we are seeing again ISIS using Americans who think like Americans, who are trained to watch American marketing, American messaging, to basically be in charge of their messaging, because they are now fighting the war of ideas. They are trying to reach the American public, to show the American public that the reason why we're fighting you is because of your government policy. So they're trying to use the American public to put pressure on the government and to basically recruit as well. And that's very dangerous.
Well, we have reports that 4 people with ties to Middle Eastern terror groups trying to cross our southern border are now under arrest. This is happening just before the 9/11 anniversary, which adds to the growing concerns about attacks here at home. And as I understand it, you really believe that ISIS is already here in the U.S. What evidence backs that up?
Well, the intelligence community and members of our government as well have already stated publicly that at least we know of 100 that we already identified Americans with American passports who are now fighting with ISIS. Those are the ones we know about, Uma. We estimate over 400 that we don't even know who they are, who are fighting with ISIS. I heard yesterday intelligence said about 40 returned back to the United States. The intelligence community is monitoring them. They're already inside the country. So we know they are trying to come in. We know they have been trained by ISIS. As for the Mexican border, again, the Mexican border, it doesn't come as shocking news to anybody that we have terrorists crossing the Mexican border. We know that Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda both have been trying to pay off the drug cartels to smuggle terrorists into America. I discussed that in both my books, Because They Hate and They Must Be Stopped. Different terrorist organizations have been paying between $10,000 and $25,000 per terrorist to the drug cartel to smuggle that terrorist into the United States. ISIS is doing the same thing.
We also learned this week that a law enforcement bulletin is warning that ISIS fighters are calling for so-called lone wolves to attack U.S. soldiers in America and use Twitter, Facebook, etc. to send messages saying to look up those military members' home addresses online so that they could kill them. Now, this is a chilling development, but it's part of that terror group's aggressive use of social media once again. Do you believe Homeland Security understands that many of these fighters are part of a generation that's grown up with social media and are quite savvy? Is DHS playing just catch-up at this point?
DHS is playing catch-up, but they are taking this threat seriously. I mean, look what happened in England just a few months ago. We already have seen a British soldier beheaded during daylight on British streets. Look what they were planning to do in Australia just a couple days ago. So if they did it already in London, they were planning on doing it in Australia. We know they are planning on doing it in the United States as well. The problem with our government, Uma, is we have failed to identify who we are really fighting. First, we were supposedly fighting Al-Qaeda. Now we are supposedly fighting ISIS. What our government needs to tell the American public is we are fighting Orthodox Islam as it was practiced on the days of Prophet Muhammad. It doesn't matter what name they go by, whether they're ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas, Boko Haram, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Al-Shabaab. They all wear different names, but they are all the same, following the commandments of the Quran. And that's why we need to open our eyes and realize we are fighting an ideology all all these people operating out of the same doctrine, and that's why we must do whatever we have to do to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. Brigitte, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.